Okay, so this is, and everyone knows that this is not my forte, right? So I'm here with Lacy. Lacy wants to do an interview today, and also a bit of a discussion. And we're going to talk about the
hashtag colour the spectrum.
Colour the spectrum. And there's some controversy about it at the moment, with things that's going on. And as Lacy who is autistic, she wants to explain it from that perspective. And so we've set out some questions, and we've only set out questions to make it flow, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Make it easier.
And keep me on track.
Keep her on track.
Because I go on big tangents a lot.
Yeah.
Anyone who's ever had a conversation with me will know, once you get me on a topic, I'm not going to stay on it for very long. I'm going to go on a massive tangent about something more interesting. Right?
So, we've done 6 questions, and so this is why we're going to ask some questions.
Yeah. Also, just a quick warning, if I ever ask someone to repeat a question, that's just because I sometimes just completely leave consciousness for a minute, and then come back to earth and have to figure out what the person just said.
Yeah.
I blank out a lot, where I'll have an answer in my head, and once they've actually asked the question, completely goes. And then I also sink into this sofa. It's very comfy. This is my dad's sofa. It's very comfy. So I will probably end up like this by the end of it.
Okay. Right. Are you ready for your first question? Right. So, why did you want to do this video?
Well, the thing is that Colour the Spectrum is supposed to be a thing that supports autistic people. But obviously, as per the controversy, why it has a controversy is because it really doesn't. It's supporting a charity that's very harmful to autistic people. And I see it's my responsibility as an autistic people to prevent donations to this, as to educate people, right? And to teach people that they need to do their research before donating or starting fundraisers for things.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why, like, for example, all of you are friends with me on Facebook, which is, I've hidden myself from search so you can't find me.
Yeah.
But anyone who follows me on Facebook would have seen that on the 1st of April, as actually when we're filming this, it's the 25th?
25th.
Of April. I can't count. But it's the 25th of April, and April is Autism Acceptance Month. And because of that, on the 1st of April, I posted a very long post teaching people what's okay to say, what's not, and just basic little things that you need to know about autism, things you need to avoid. So, for example, avoid donating to Autism Speaks.
Yeah.
Use identity first language, everything like that. And we will come on to that identity first in a little bit.
Because there's reasons behind why you feel like this, and why many people who are autistic feel like this.
Because autistic people, people often, I think I'll touch on this a bit more in the second question, because we've gone through these questions before. And autistic people, we're often presumed incompetent.
Which is far from the truth.
Yeah. We're often presumed that we're dumb, and that we can't think for ourselves, and we can't have an opinion. I think very much the media has helped influence that perception with shows like The A Word, Atypical, all these other shows that just always portray autistic people as these naive, dumb, easy to manipulate people, right? And we're not that. We are people with opinions and thoughts, and often it's more of just a communication barrier than an intelligence barrier.
Exactly. And I think there was a movie made a little while ago about someone who was autistic, but they didn't get an autistic person to play the part.
Yeah, that.
And I think that caused a lot of...
That's Sia's movie Music, which is a dumb title, because there's a million things called music.
Yeah.
But also, and also made by somebody, and I don't believe there was that many autistic people on the project.
No.
Right? Certainly not in high positions.
No.
Right?
And they could have had someone that's autistic to play that part and be honest about it.
Yeah. Director, And also just a quick terminology thing, neurodivergent refers to anyone with any sort of neurological disorder, so ADHD, dyslexia, autism, that's neurodivergent. Neurotypical is people who don't have any of those.
Yeah.
So neurotypical people are they're called neurotypical because they're what society sees as the normal. Even though there's never a normal, because we're humans and we're all different.
Yeah.
But Sia's movie music didn't have any autistic people in high positions of power. They did have an autistic actor originally, I believe, but Sia fired her because she wasn't willing. Now this is just based off what I've seen, I can't confirm this, but Sia fired her because she wasn't willing to make accommodations for an autistic actress. So instead she just got a neurotypical actress to pretend to be autistic. And the thing is that I don't think neurotypical people can ever accurately portray the autistic experience because they've not lived it, right? And they're always going to portray what they've seen before, which is also neurotypical people pretending to be autistic.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a constant cycle of neurotypical people playing neurodivergent roles, and that's not okay. We need,
because what's wrong with someone with autistic being in the movie about autism?
Yeah, right. I mean, the whole movie also perpetuates some very harmful things, like this. There's the scene of the hug of love, which is actually a method of controlling an autistic person that has actually resulted in multiple autistic people's deaths.
Yeah.
Where it's basically, there's a scene in the movie where the character has a meltdown, and which are totally normal things. People often think they're like tantrums or anything like that, but it's more that we're overloaded and we're trying to, and the only way we can we're trying to get it out, and the only way we know how to get it out is to scream, because it's simply too much, because our senses, it's often sensory overload, but meltdowns can be really over anything. But for example, sensory overloads if there's fluorescent lights that flicker, or if there's a baby crying while somebody's mowing the lawn.
It's too much.
Yeah, right?
Okay.
And that movie perpetuated that it was totally okay that if an autistic person was having a meltdown, you just go and jump on them and grab them. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but touch is also a sense.
Yeah.
So you're only going to worsen the overload.
Yeah. By that physical touching.
Yeah. And also, the police have done this before. Here's a tip for you neurotypical people watching, and fellow autistic people if you're watching. I know you're watching, Will Venus.
Yes, hello, Will.
But we were. But here's a tip: don't ever, if an autistic person is having a meltdown, don't ever call the police.
No.
Right?
It's not a good thing.
Go and call an emergency contact, because a lot of us have those. A lot of us have emergency contacts. My emergency contact is my mum. Right? A lot of us have emergency contacts. I have a card on me that has my mum's phone number, so that if I ever have a meltdown, right, they can grab the card and they can call my mum to come and get me.
Yeah.
Right?
Because I think when you say don't call the police, you're saying it because not that the police would, they wouldn't know what was going on, because not everyone, as we've seen before with many things that's been happening with mental health and other different things. Yeah. The police are not always the best people to deal with someone that's having a meltdown.
Yeah,
not really.
because the only
because
thing
they're not trained, specifically trained in that.
The only thing they know how to do is kneel on someone. For example, autistic people have died from being knelt on by the police. Yeah. And from being grabbed by the police. Yeah. And everything like that. And often autistic people will get in more trouble because they hit the police officers, because they're being, so for example,
they're being restrained.
Because they'll be touched like that, and our immediate reflex is to go, because we want you to stop touching us.
That's why it's always good to try and do that.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the second question? So what is your own experience like of being autistic?
My own experience has been, I'm very lucky in a way that we'll move on to this later, but with being an autistic woman, it's very if you think, I've got a little thought for you and the viewers at home.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what's the portrayal of autism that you've seen in media. Like, what do you think of when you think of autism? Is it a little white boy?
Well,
is it a little white boy who's either a giant man-child, or the smartest person on earth?
Probably, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, just like its name, I think a lot of people, since it's always shortened to autism, a lot of people forget it's autism spectrum disorder.
Yeah.
That's because there's a wide range of it, right? There's a wide range of autism. So, and a lot of people say this is like low functioning and high functioning. I don't agree with that. Because autistic people are human, obviously. We're people. And humans are never that simple. You can never reduce someone down to low functioning, high functioning.
No.
Because just like everyone else, we have different areas of functioning.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got friends who are much better than me socially, right? I have many autistic friends because we kind of attract each other, because we relate to each other.
Yeah, you understand each other, I think.
Right? And I have friends who are way better than me socially.
Yeah.
But I don't think I have any autistic friends who are better than me in memory.
Exactly.
Or in, like, and my other friends, but I have a good friend who's also autistic, who he's really good at drawing. He's really, really talented artist, right?
So what's your talent?
I can barely draw stick men properly, right? And
so what's your talent then?
I do a lot of stuff, mainly because we have special interests.
Yeah.
And we get very, very into our. A lot of people think we're the smartest people on earth because like we know all this stuff. But the thing is that we're mainly interested in, like, the thing we're interested in is what we remember.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what I learned in science last week.
No.
Can't tell you that, right? Like all the stuff I spent like 5 hours a week doing in lessons.
Because you're disinterested in it, aren't you?
I'm not interested in it.
So really, are you saying then that you are, if you're focused enough on something that you enjoy, your whole attention then goes to that.
Yeah,
and that's what makes you.
It's called a special interest, and it's also hyperfixation.
Yeah.
And hyper-focusing on things, right? So, for example, one of my, I'm going to try not to go on a tangent here. I'm really resisting it. But one of my massive special interests is Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I
can't go into a big thing on Doctor Who on it because it takes up any fans of Doctor Who. She's the person to talk to. I tell you.
But one of my key interests is Doctor Who, especially the 60s series.
When Nan
of
was
the first,
born.
the first and second Doctors, and actually the 97 missing episodes.
Yeah.
That's one of my key interests, and I can focus ages and ages upon that. But I've almost fallen asleep during English lessons because I'm so bored.
But you're really great at English, though, aren't you?
Yeah, but only because, like, I basically I can push myself through it. Yeah. But it'll never be to the level that I can do my special interests at. Yeah. Right?
But when you write, though, because you write. Yeah. You write your history, is your thing. Yeah. You've got a real keen interest on history.
Especially the royal family. I know a lot about the royal family. Mm-hmm. I made, on a family tree website, I made my own family tree, obviously, which I've done.
Which we've gone back to
1605.
1605.
On her side, because I can't find my dad's side.
We've got a massive family, haven't we, Mark? This is the thing. We go back generations. I mean, loads of it.
My dad's over there. Just so you know, viewers, my dad's over there sitting in his chair. And then
Granddad's over there.
Granddad's over there on the floor. And because of where were we? I've blanked out.
We was on about the history.
Yeah, the history. And on this family tree website, I made my own family tree, and then I decided to make an English monarchy family tree, where I went all the way, finding every single connection. I've gone into tons of rabbit holes on the British family, the British royal family's connection to other royal families, like the Danish and the Spanish and everything like that. And I went from William the Conqueror all the way to Queen Elizabeth II and all of her descendants, who are eventually going to be king. Good luck, Charles.
Right, so let's move on then to the next question, really.
Yeah.
Or is there anything else you want to say about how autism
quickly
affects you?
Yeah. Hold on, just before I start, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before I go on, I wanted to talk about quickly how Mark Rober's video uses person first language, when many of us prefer identity first language. So what that means is, rather than calling us people with autism, call us autistic people. Now, it doesn't seem like that big of a change. It just seems like a difference in grammar or something like that.
Yeah.
But it actually has a massive impact on us, because saying that we're people with autism implies that it's some sort of affliction that we have. It's a piece of baggage that we have. It's a burden on us, because we have autism. We're with autism.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't agree with that, because it's not. Yes, it does impact my life in some ways.
Yeah.
But I think often people like to portray autism as this purely negative thing, right? That's like we're always suffering, and we destroyed our parents' marriages. There's a video from Autism Speaks from 2009 called I Am Autism, and it has a whole opening thing where it's like, I am autism, I will destroy your relationships, right? No, I didn't.
No.
I didn't destroy my parents' marriage, they did that.
That's the other thing, I think. The honesty.
Yeah, right?
You don't lie, do you?
Yeah, I won't lie. Because the thing is that, right, as with all things, right, autism is not a purely negative thing. I have ups and downs just like everyone else. I have in my life, like, some days where I'm just like, I'm the smartest person on earth. I love myself, and I have other days where it's like, I wish I could just be normal, right?
Yeah.
Because there are just some days, and the thing is that there's a quote, I don't remember who it's from, but autistic people don't suffer because we're autistic. We suffer because we live in a world that is not willing to accommodate us and accept us.
Yeah.
Right? Our suffering, any sort of suffering we do have, we don't have that because of autism. It's not autism that makes us suffer, it's the lack of acceptance and the unwillingness to cooperate with us that is affecting us.
How is your daily life affected by autism?
My daily life, when it comes to autism, is mainly just my routine. I have a specific routine that I must follow every day, right? And if anything like about that routine changes at all, I will cry. Yeah. Because if you disrupt my routine, then you're basically disrupting what my brain has mentally prepared to do. Because for a lot of things, it takes a lot of energy for me to do things that most people would find easy. Yeah. Because a lot of my everyday involves obviously being a teenager who goes to school, right?
Which is
right. My everyday life involves a lot of social interaction. Yeah. Right.
But do you enjoy that social interaction or not?
It's a mixed thing. I enjoy the social interaction with my friends
because they're
most of them are also autistic, and they're just fun to be around. Yeah. But I don't enjoy the social interaction with teachers and with other, like, my classmates who I'm not friends with. Yeah. Right? Because they are they're much more difficult to get along with because they don't understand. Yeah. And the teachers are used to teaching in one way. Yeah. And they don't understand that sometimes there are people who don't learn in that way, and you need to actively push yourself. And
I think with England we haven't got enough schools that are designed specifically for that. Yeah. Isn't it?
And my I have a friend who's autistic. He has been displaying obvious autistic traits most of his life. Yeah. He was not diagnosed until he was 12. Right. Because his primary school noticed that he had a lot of autistic traits, but they never said anything about it.
Right. Right. It's easier to let it pass by.
Yeah. So he didn't get a diagnosis until he was 12, meaning he went most of his childhood having all these weird quirks and everything, without understanding why.
So can I just ask you then, Lace, we're talking about, aren't we, people, you know, your
Autistic
friend that
people.
was diagnosed at 12. What age, as a female woman, was you diagnosed then?
Yeah. I was diagnosed, I'm very lucky with this, that I was diagnosed at 2.5. The formal diagnosis was at 3, but they'd already confirmed and gotten everything in place at 2.5.
Yeah.
And that is very, very lucky for me, because autistic women are rarely diagnosed that early, right?
Yeah.
It's only because I, was displaying traits that much, like my traits were very outward, but also because I had parents who understood and were willing to fight for me.
Yeah, because it was a fight.
Yeah, it was a fight, because we had, my nursery were the first people to notice it.
Yeah.
They were people who, they went up to my mum and my dad and they said, we think your daughter might be autistic.
Yeah.
And so they brought in a specialist, and this specialist looked at me.
Yeah.
And she said, no, she's just a bit socially behind, she's a bit underdeveloped, she'll catch up.
Because that's a lot of things with women that have it, or girls that have it.
Yeah, is that we're often just seen as shy, or we're misdiagnosed with anxiety or depression. But like, I was 2.5, how could I have anxiety? Right? So, I obviously was autistic, right? And my nursery and my parents, they told this specialist, were you even looking at the right child? Right? Mm. I don't even think you were looking at our daughter, because this is not at all what our daughter is like.
Yeah.
Right? And so they brought in another specialist who took like a look at me for like 2 minutes and went, she's autistic. And I managed to get a formal diagnosis. Everything was in place for my transition to primary school.
Yeah.
Everything was in place by the time I was 3.
Which is very good.
Which is very, very good, right? But the thing is that because my parents chose to get that second opinion, that's the only reason I was diagnosed.
Yeah.
It's because my parents chose to get that second opinion.
Yeah, they pushed for it, didn't they?
If my parents had just settled on that first doctor just saying she's a bit
underdeveloped. So don't always
underdeveloped.
believe the first opinion, is what we're saying.
If they just listened to that first doctor who said she's just a bit underdeveloped, I probably would have been still undiagnosed now.
Yeah.
And I'm 13, 14.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so I would still be undiagnosed around this age, had they not gone for that second
And it is true that
opinion.
a lot less women are diagnosed with autism than men or boys.
Yeah, right? Because the thing is that, the reason that is because all the research of 100 years, so it's almost, actually in just 20 years it'll be 100 years.
Yeah.
Right? And the first few cases of autism were first noticed by this guy called Hans Asperger.
Yeah.
Asperger.
Yeah.
Tried to pronounce it right. Hans Asperger.
Yeah.
Who was actually a Nazi scientist, so we don't like him very much.
We don't like him very much at all.
Right? And so that's why they've kind of drifted away from the Asperger syndrome.
Yeah. And then moved, for the links towards that.
Right. But he noticed the first few autistic people. He noticed the first few cases, and he was the person who came up with the name Asperger's syndrome.
Yeah.
Because of course, being like he was a Nazi scientist, so he had the resources to.
Yeah.
Right. And but it wasn't commonly diagnosed. It was the first, it was diagnosed a bit in the 50s,
I think it was
60s.
more theories, wasn't it? It was all about theories.
Yeah, in
could be this,
50s and 60s there was a couple diagnoses, but it was all men.
Yeah.
Right? And it was all children as well. There was no adults.
No.
Right? People thought it was purely a child thing that they grow out of. But it wasn't. It's a lifelong thing.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to turn 18 and suddenly not be autistic anymore. That's not how that works.
So when we look at this, the research now, this controversy.
Wait. But all the diagnosis criteria, because of all that research for almost 100 years now, so it's been about 80 years now, where all the research has been towards white boys.
Right.
Little white boys.
Right.
People of colour are also rarely diagnosed.
Right.
Right? That's a common thing as well.
Yeah.
but especially women
are
very rarely diagnosed early, right? They're usually diagnosed well into their 20s, right? So they're rarely even diagnosed as teenagers, right?
So it's very hard then for them to get through, isn't it? Them years.
Because they're told their whole life that maybe they're just not trying hard enough,
right,
or anything, when really it's just something that we can't help, right? We can't, like, for example, my troubles with education of like misunderstanding or not being, or the teacher's moving too fast, and or maybe I'm just kind of leaving consciousness midway through the lesson. I come back and suddenly there's a whole bunch of stuff on the board that I don't understand. Right? That's happened way too many times. Like, for example, I'll be in maths and my teacher will be writing an equation on the board. My brain goes, this is boring. Goes off to a dream world. And I come back and suddenly there's a whole quadratic equation on the board that I don't understand. Right? And because of that, because of all those years, 80 years of research that have gone into little white boys. Right?
It's really the whole thing isn't out there then, isn't it? If the research has just been dedicated to that.
The diagnosis criteria is purely based off how men present their traits.
Oh, right.
And men, right, men present very differently from autistic women. Autistic men and autistic women, they present very differently. Right?
So it's hard if you're only going on that sort of research, isn't it?
Because autistic men are much more, usually much more outward. With their presentation. They're usually much more like outward, and that's why the portrayal of autistic people in media is always men, because men have the more outward traits. Usually, autistic women, we are told that we're just shy. Right? Because we're very good at this thing called masking, which is basically, and it takes a lot of energy, and that's why we're always so exhausted in the end of the day, is because we've been masking our traits for so long, right? And masking is simply the act of, we're very good, autistic women, we're very good at looking at what other people do and copying it.
Right.
My way to get through the day is simply to copy the way other people talk.
Right.
Because that's the way. Because, like, if that's what the neurotypical people are doing, then that must be how I'm supposed to talk. So I'll just copy that, right? And I've done that my whole life. Other than when I was like 2 and I hadn't learnt that yet.
No.
Right? And I was outward enough to get a diagnosis at 2.5. But we're taught that, like, from the basically very, very young age, we're taught that autistic traits are weird. Don't have those traits. So we just copy other people so that we don't appear autistic, right? And that's why we need a much better set of diagnostic criteria for autistic women. Because imagine trying to base a diagnosis off another person's, like... Imagine trying to base a dyslexia diagnosis off, like a person who doesn't have dyslexia's
it couldn't be done, could it?
Right? You couldn't do that, right? Trying to base any sort of diagnosis off something that is very different, right? So trying to base a diagnosis of autistic women's traits off autistic men's traits is never going to work.
And it's never going to be true.
Yeah, it's never going to be correct, right? I have a friend, I have another friend, because most of my friends are autistic. Like I said earlier, we attract each other. And I have another friend who... she was diagnosed with anxiety since age 10. Turns out she was just autistic. Right? But she'd been misdiagnosed with generalised anxiety disorder for years.
And it was she was autistic.
It was autism. Right? Because obviously
if they're not looking at the right, if they're not judging it how they should be, that's how so many people are missed. So we need to move on. So the whole reason, one of the reasons why we've done this video is, one, because we want to tell your story and we want to tell people what it's like. But also it's about this new research and this charity that's doing this research.
Charity, I say.
So this is where now I'm going to leave this up to you to explain, firstly, in the charity, which I think you've already hit on earlier, and then we're going to come back to that now. 2, on the testing
that
they're doing and why they're doing it, and why you feel that and many people who's autistic feel that this is not right.
That this is not the charity that, obviously this hashtag Colour the Spectrum thing was started by Mark Rober, who's the father of an autistic boy.
Yeah.
Right? And Mark Rober, I'd say he's a very intelligent man. He's an ex-NASA engineer, so he's a highly educated man. He's got good experience. I'd say that a lot of people on the internet have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
Because he's done plenty of good things, and I do believe he had good intentions here. Because why would he purposely go for a charity that harms his own son?
No.
Right?
And I think sometimes when we don't know his reasons for doing it, we know, I mean, I don't actually personally know.
I watched the video last night. Right.
But we are again saying that this is now, he's got a son with autism and he started this charity. But what does this charity do?
Like, he didn't start the charity, he started the fundraiser.
The fundraiser for the charity.
Yeah. He has nothing to do with the actual charity.
Right. But he started a fundraiser to raise money for this charity.
Who are called Next for Autism.
Right.
And they are a quite damaging charity, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if it can go in the video, but I'm very hesitant to call them a charity.
I think this is Lacy's opinion. We have to say it's our opinion.
Yeah.
And we will leave it up to you for your opinion.
Yeah.
So you can say.
But I'm very hesitant to call this a charity.
Yeah.
Right?
So why?
Because a lot of their research, I mean, if you go to their mission statement on their website, one of the first things they're trying to find is preventions and cures for autism. Why do you need to cure autism? It's not a disease. It's just a different wiring of the brain.
So I think if we're looking at that from the other side, because in an argument there's always going to be two.
Yeah.
Prevention, what is it? Because one of you're going to have to explain to me in a minute what is in the brain, what's happening then, and a cure. Now a cure, I can see where they're coming from in a certain way, but I can't see it. Because if you're born, this is how you're born, like this. There is no cure. Like there's no cure for many, many things. Yeah. So yes, I get it.
Not only is there is no cure, but there's no need for a cure. Why would you need to cure someone when? And we're going to come on to this later with one of these questions. But why would you need to cure certain things when, because of our intense interest in certain fields, we can be very useful employees in certain places. Like, for example, my intense love for film and everything like that, I want to work in a film archive when I'm older. Yeah. Right?
And you would focus on that all day long and that would be your thing.
Right? So because of that, we're very useful workers in whatever field we have an interest in.
But I think you're going to have some parents out there and you're going to have some people say, well, I'd like my son or my daughter to be cured of it so they can be normal. Yeah. Right? But that's what you're saying is upsetting because you have a life. It may look different to how
I mean,
live.
I'm a person, I have ups and downs just like everyone else, right? And as with everything in humans, there is no normal. What is normal? Yeah. How do you...
And who are we to say that the autistic person isn't normal? Because... really, because some of the... And I think what upsets me about when I read all this stuff...
Here's actually the thing for me, right? I'd say the most normal thing about humans is that we're not normal. Yeah. Right? There is no normal. That's what's normal about us. No. That's something we all share. Yeah. It's the fact that we're all different.
Yeah. Yes. So I think what you're saying is just because you're autistic, you don't need to be cured. Yeah. You don't need to be changed. Yeah. But research then, because the research that you're talking about is goes more in depth than that, doesn't it? Yeah. So we need to get to that point, I think, about the in-depth part of this research they're doing now, which has made a lot of people, like us as families and people sit back and think, hang on a minute, that doesn't sound right. What people are trying to do, and it's about the embryos, isn't it?
Yes. Basically, part of the funding, and actually I've got a note here. Yeah. When I wrote these notes, which was at 1 a.m. Last night, so 1 a.m. on the 25th of April 2021, the fundraiser on the video, which is called The Truth About My Son, which was uploaded 16th of April, has raised $937,770.
Right.
which is nearing its $1 million goal.
Yeah.
And that is 675,943.40 pounds.
Right.
So that's over 600. That's almost 700,000 pounds.
And what do they want that money for?
And that money is going towards research, towards prenatal scans for autism. Which basically means that, if any of you don't know what prenatal is, basically that's like before birth. So you can have your prenatal scans, which are ultrasounds and everything like that. And basically what a prenatal scan for autism would allow people to do was it would allow people to detect autism in the womb, which would then allow parents to abort their babies being autistic, which is known as eugenics.
Yeah.
Because it's trying to weed out things you don't like.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think this is the whole point about this, because we're not the only ones that feel strongly about this. There's many more people
mainly
that feel
autistic
strongly.
people.
Now, I have to say though that we agree that everybody has a choice to do what they wish.
Yeah.
As a personal choice, but I think when you're raising money for a charity, that does it make it quite clear that's what they're doing on that charity?
Yeah, like that part of their mission statement is looking for preventions.
So prevention would be, one of the preventions would be then in the embryo, if they find it, to then
abort the baby.
Abort the baby. That is one of the preventions.
Imagine, like, I'm a firm believer in my body, my choice.
Yes,
right?
and we all are, and we're not saying this to stop anybody doing anything.
Yeah.
But we just want to highlight, if you're going to give a charity money, you must be really sure what you're giving that money for and what the effects really could have.
Yeah, and then also, if you go through enough of the pregnancy to have this prenatal scan, because I don't know exactly when they're planning during the pregnancy.
But it'd have to be very early on.
Yeah, right? And if you were willing to go through that much pregnancy, so if you were perfectly happy being pregnant, but the moment you find out that your child is autistic, that's when you decide, oh wait, I don't want this baby anymore.
Yeah.
Well, don't you think that's a little ableist? Right?
Yeah. I think this is what a lot of people feel. I think people have really become offended by this, because there's a lot of people that live,
I'm perfectly happy being autistic. It's a part of me. It's part of my identity.
Yeah.
Right? Autism is not this like burden on my family or me.
No.
It's not a piece of baggage I have. It's simply a part of me, and it affects how I perceive the world and everything like that. But that does give me the unique perspective on the world, which I think is very useful. Yeah. Right?
And I think when we was talking earlier, we was talking about people from history that have had traits.
Yeah.
Or because as we said earlier, the research wasn't there as such, but I think who was the major one?
Well, basically, one major person who is believed to have been autistic is Albert Einstein.
Now,
so imagine if this research had been done then hundreds of years ago when Albert Einstein was in his mother's womb.
Yeah. And she had the choice.
And she had the choice to abort him. We would not have the theory of relativity.
Yeah. And I think there's other people in history that stand out of having some traits of some form of it.
I mean, also there's Dan Aykroyd. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Who's a very famous actor. He's also got he is diagnosed autistic when he was in his 40s, I think.
Yeah.
If he had been aborted for being autistic, think about how different Ghostbusters would have been.
That's it.
Right?
But I think everyone, whether they're actors or they're scientists or they've changed the world in some way, I think once we start choosing, or being able to choose, how normal do we want, what is normal? What else then is this gene going to be took out, from what else is going to be removed?
I mean, think about it's a thing of recently there's a big debate going on. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but it's a big debate of gene editing and everything like that, and designer babies.
Designer babies. Where does it end?
Right? So, if you choose that you don't want any autism in your family, well...
That's their choice.
Yeah, right?
We just wanted you to make you aware of
what this charity is doing.
This charity is about, yeah.
Right? This charity is looking for prenatal scans I mean, both this and I believe Next for Autism also has ties to Autism Speaks, which is another terrible autism charity that we're all very strongly against. It's what popularised the puzzle piece symbol that we also don't like. Here's another tip for you neurotypical people watching. If you want to spread autism acceptance, this Autism Acceptance Month, now that it's coming to an end,
Yeah.
right? And also it's autism acceptance, not awareness.
Yeah.
Autism awareness, well, just being aware of something isn't really going to help. We need acceptance.
Yeah.
Right? We need people who are willing to accept us.
Yeah.
Right? And, but with...
the Autism Month, it's a month,
yeah, this month. If you want to spread autism acceptance, this Autism Acceptance Month, or next one, which is it's every April.
Yeah.
Then use the neurodivergent infinity ribbon.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a nice symbol, and it represents the whole neurodivergent community. A puzzle piece symbol. It was made in the 1950s. But it was popularised by Autism Speaks in the 90s and early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was made because autism was a puzzling condition.
Right.
And it basically implies that there's something missing, or we're a puzzle that needs to be solved.
Right.
We're
And
not.
you don't like that? No.
Yeah. Right? So, tip, use the infinity ribbon. I'm trying to do an infinity symbol here, but...
Did you send me a link to that so I can put it up or not?
I'll send you that. But... put an infinity ribbon, so much better than the puzzle piece.
So, we're talking about the funding for this to go to this sort of thing. But what do you think funding should go to?
I think something that would be much better to fund, like we talked about earlier, would be research for autistic women.
Yeah.
Right? We need more research on autistic women and autistic people of colour and everything like that, because they are often the ones who are misdiagnosed,
Yeah.
or misbelieved, or not
Yeah.
believed,
Yeah.
right? They are the ones who need research done,
Yeah.
right? So, for example, one thing I would absolutely love as an autistic woman is if other autistic women can have my experience of getting diagnosed early,
Yeah.
right?
Because one, it would give them a better quality of life because
Yeah.
they'd get the help they needed.
Yeah, and everything would already, and for me, it was because, right, I already had everything in place by the time I was in primary school. You know, at like 5 years old. By the time I was 3, everything for my transition to primary school was already set up.
Yeah.
Right? And everything like that. Because I got diagnosed that early, it allowed them to get everything into place so that my experience was not too jarring.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that it was a bit easier for me, and it
So
allowed...
you'd want research, not so much going to the embryo part,
Yeah.
to try and find a cure or to get rid of anything like that.
I want research into how autistic women present their traits, and thus to be able to create a diagnostic criteria specifically for autistic women.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And I think the other part about the funding and the charities should be, because there's a lot of people out there with people in their family who haven't got any help. Like we're talking about schooling, haven't we?
Yeah.
We haven't got enough schools that just cater, because it is on a spectrum, so we're going to have people on that spectrum, aren't we?
Yeah.
From that are going to be affected in different ways.
Yeah.
So I think if
Right.
you're going to fundraise and you're going to do things for, you know, on the autistic spectrum or any other, you know, as you say,
Right?
then money should go to help the families.
Yeah.
To
I mean,
support the families. To help.
Yeah. Next for Autism, and also its connection to Autism Speaks.
Yeah.
Both of those charities, very, very little of their funding actually goes towards helping autistic people and their families.
Yeah.
Very little of that funding goes there.
Yeah.
Right? And most of it goes towards finding preventions and cures and all this kind of, and also paying its employees who are also not autistic.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. So even some of these charities to hire
Right?
people with autism.
Right?
Or
That would be so much better. Autistic people, right? If you like, so for example, on Autism Speaks, there used to be an autistic guy on the board of directors, but he left because he was not being listened to.
right.
Right?
And I think this is the big issue here, is if you're going to employ someone,
Right?
then you need to make sure that you're not just employing them to have their title or their name or their
or to have
diagnosis on their piece of paper, but you're actually listening and taking into account and focusing on what they're saying.
I think people take it as in like the diversity checklist.
Yeah,
right?
And it can't just be a checklist.
Where it's like, if you just check like, oh, we hired a black person.
Yeah.
We hired an autistic person.
Yeah.
Right, what do we need to do now to be considered a diverse company?
So how do you think the world would be? Final question, because we have to wind this up.
Yeah.
How do you feel the world would be if there was no autistic people in it?
I think the world would be a lot less interesting.
Yes, I agree.
Right? Because I don't think many of you actually know. I think a good thing to do is, if you want to know, right, look up your favourite celebrity on Wikipedia, go down to the personal life section, right, see if it mentions autism down there, right, or if they have a health section, go down there, right, right, and look up your favourite celebrities. I bet you at least one of them is autistic.
Yeah.
Right? Because the amount of autistic people that I know, right, makes it very clear there's a lot more of them than the media likes to portray.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the amount of autistic people I know just in my friend group alone, right, there's a good, 4 autistic people in my friend group?
And they're very talented.
Yeah. One of them's a talented artist, the other one is she's very dedicated to her animals.
Yeah.
Right, and everything, and my other friend who's an artist, he's a very popular digital artist. Obviously, I won't tell you his name.
Yeah.
But
there's talent out there, so that I think the world would be a lesser place.
Yeah.
And
also, had there been no autistic people in it in the entirety of history, well, good luck having the theory of relativity. But you would not have so many things. You wouldn't have the original Ghostbusters lineup.
No. There are so many things we wouldn't have.
Right. You wouldn't have the original Ghostbusters that tons of people like. You wouldn't have theory of relativity, everything like that.
Yeah.
You would not have those. And also, I just want to have a quick thing about the use of autistic people in media. We're often used as kind of we're used as the subject and not a person in it.
Yeah.
Right? We're used as the thing that everybody else is around. Right? Yeah. We're not used as an actual person in the piece. So, for example, I'm sure many of you have seen headlines be popularised, maybe on Facebook or on a sort of social media you've seen shared, right? Of stuff like, boy invites autistic girl to prom. Right? And in that headline, there'll be an interview with the girl's mum, and there'll be an interview with the boy, but no interview with her. She's not part of this story.
No.
She's the subject of the story.
Yeah.
And it's often what the internet, now I'm not sure if I can say this, but this is what the internet refers to as inspiration porn.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the name that the internet has given it.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's basically where things are used as inspiration.
Yeah.
Right? So, for example, in Mark Rober's video, I think this is shown in the fact that he spends most of the video talking about how hard life can be for these people.
Yeah.
And then suddenly talking into, but the wonderful things they can do.
Yeah.
Right? And I see that as a thing of like, well, yeah, but we have ups and downs just like everyone else. Everyone's like that.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone has hard times in their life that is also accompanied by the wonderful things they do.
Yeah.
Right? But just because it's autistic people, it's seen as so much more inspirational. I mean, the comments underneath that video, I've read some of them, and some of them are like, this is so inspirational, thank you for this video, Mark. Right?
I haven't watched. I'll be honest, I haven't watched it, and I'm not even going to bother watching it because she's just told me everything about it.
Yeah, but I did watch it. And I disliked it.
Yeah. And I think as you have autism, right?
I'm autistic, yeah.
And so you're autistic, and you have a right to say, and your opinion counts and matters, because you have it.
Yeah,
you are it.
I live this experience.
I am not, and when you speak about lots of different stuff, this is not my forte, as you know. Yeah. Yes, I know about mental health, and I know about different stuff like that, but Lacy, I think when you actually, when you actually sort of believed or understood that you was autistic?
The first time it really kicked in for me is because it's always been in the back of my mind. Like, I've always known that I'm autistic because I've always been diagnosed. That's the thing. I've always known it.
But when did you really understand it?
So like, for example, when my mum used to fill in forms at my school and she would write down my health conditions, and I would tell her, write down autism.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I knew that was there, and she would always just forget, right? Because, like you've said, she has a memory like a sieve. That's something you've said multiple times in the video, right?
And I'm honest.
Yeah, right. But the first time it really kicked in for me that I was actually autistic was in when I was 11, so I would have been in year 7, and that was the first time that it really kicked in for me, right? Because obviously I was on social media and I'd seen like and I was seeing other people like me for the first time. And then in secondary school, unlike in primary school was a much smaller group of people.
Yeah, you went to quite a small primary school, anyway.
I went to a small primary school where there was only one class per year.
Yeah, you was very lucky. Yeah.
Right? So rather than, I know a lot of British primary schools have actually like 2 classes in year, so you have 2 year 6 classes.
Yeah.
I only had 1.
Yeah.
Right? And everything, so I was constantly around the same people. So that meant that I was never opened up to like other experiences. I was never opened up to that. So going from this tiny little primary school to a massive secondary school with like, I believe there's like 10 classes in my year. Right?
You found it a bit overwhelming, I think.
Right?
Did you at first?
And because of that, there's so many more people there. I mean, just in my year alone, I think there's about 150 people in my year alone. So because of that, I know so many more people now. And because of that, I've been opened up to so much more what I like to call neurodiversity.
Yeah.
Right? I've been opened up to so much more of that.
But
So before, I had my one friend who was undiagnosed autistic.
Yeah.
Right? But then, in secondary school, now I know a bunch of people who are autistic.
So you when you found out, when you accepted it and you realised, you started to research, because I want these people to know that you research everything.
Yeah, I research a lot.
So when you was, because not when you was diagnosed, you was too young when you was diagnosed, but when you actually found out at 11, 12, 11, 10, 11, you really started then to research about it, didn't you?
Yeah.
About this
I did
disorder.
a lot of research.
So you could understand it yourself.
Yeah.
And do you think that's a good idea for other people?
Yeah. I'd say, even if you're not autistic, right?
Research.
I'd say, do your research, right? And that's always something I will say. If ever you see a charity, do your research on them.
Before you give money.
Before you give money, before you start fundraisers, before you share their stuff on social media, do your research, see if they're a good company. Because Mark Rober and all these other, like, I want to talk about the sheer number of people who are involved in this. So, for example, Jimmy Kimmel, John Oliver, Rhett and Link were involved, but they've now withdrawn their support, luckily.
Yeah.
Jacksepticeye, who I had a lot of respect for, and I still do. He's an amazing guy, but he needs to reconsider this.
Right.
And many, many other celebrities and internet stars, like the D'Amelio sisters.
Do you think they really understand what they're backing?
No, I don't think they do. I think that they've seen this video, and Mark Rober has organised this.
Yeah.
He published the video on 16th of April. He'd actually filmed it in 2018.
Really?
Right?
And it took this long to release it out?
Yeah, because he didn't feel comfortable releasing it, because it was really personal, because he'd never really shown his son on camera, and suddenly he was going to be releasing all this information about him.
Yeah.
And everything. And I do see that that's a good intention.
You see it as a good intention. Maybe,
Right?
To bring awareness to the charity.
Yeah.
Right?
Because
this is what we've done, isn't it? You're on here because you wanted to do this. It's got nothing to do with me. This was done by Lacy. To give awareness.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Plus,
we're not
to push at this charity is maybe not all it seems to be.
Yeah.
If you don't read the fine print.
Yeah. Because I believe that he simply was looking for a good local charity for him.
Yeah.
Right, as he's from the United States.
Yeah.
Right, and he was looking for a nice local charity for him that claimed to, and obviously what he says in the video, and this is close enough paraphrasing here, that he, that Next for Autism helps with autistic people transitioning from childhood to adulthood.
Right.
Right? And obviously his son is approaching that.
Yeah, okay.
So, with his son, when his son becomes a teenager, he says he wants his son to be able to have like this nice, good start to adulthood where it's not too jarring for him to suddenly be out of education.
And I think that's a really good thing, because that's what we all plan, isn't it? When, even for you plan ahead, don't we?
Yeah, and I think it's the thing that like parents do as well when they have children, is they plan like what
plan's a natural thing, isn't it?
Yeah, right? So like I'm sure my mum planned for me when
But he must have known what the charity was about, or you don't believe he really did? Did he misunderstand?
I believe that maybe he might put out a call for an autism charity.
Right, and this one's come forward.
And this one came forward claiming they help support autistic people like transition from childhood to adulthood.
Yeah.
And I believe that maybe he just didn't do his research, which I find kind of disappointing for an ex-NASA engineer. Right? He's clearly used to work at NASA.
Yeah.
Then clearly he's a very well-educated
But I think given the benefit of the doubt, you have to think with anybody, when you have a charity and they're saying something in the big print, and a lot of you would have fallen for this already.
Right.
You believe them, don't you?
Yeah.
You don't always look at the fine points and the print, the lower, you don't really research them.
Yeah.
If you're trying to raise money and raise awareness and all this stuff, even though what we're trying to do, we would look, because you research, we're researchers, that's what we do.
Yeah.
We research things.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not like that. Maybe he wanted just do something good.
Yeah.
But I think what it's doing is there's so much controversy about this now.
Yeah.
From different sides.
The fundraiser has currently got 5 days left.
Right.
In the fundraiser, so it'll end at the end of this month.
Yeah.
And it's almost, with only 5 days left, it's almost at its $1 million goal. But you realise that it'll definitely eventually reach that.
Yeah.
By the end of the fundraiser.
And that money will then go into
Next for Autism's research.
Yeah.
But I want to know truly how much of it is really going to supporting autistic people, and how much of it is actually going to trying to kill us and eradicate us from the gene pool.
Yeah. And I think this is what this video is all about.
Yeah.
So if any of you have got any information on that, or you want to add anything, leave some comments.
Yeah.
Because we'd be really interested.
And also here's one last tip I've got. If you do want to donate to actually help autistic people, donate to autistic-led charities like the Autism Self-Advocacy, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. Can you say advocacy?
Advocacy.
Yeah, advocacy. Right, I struggle with speech.
Oh, so do I.
Right, but I guess I get it from somewhere. Right, but the Autism Self-Advocacy Network, also known as ASAN, that's an autistic-led charity, right? Because it's a phrase that we've developed, which is nothing about us without us.
They are.
Right? Nothing about us without us. Because if you're going to start a charity about us but not include us in it, well, I don't consider that a charity, because, like, imagine how many charities, right, would be terrible if the people actually with the thing weren't involved in it.
No, I know.
Like cerebral palsy charity with only able-bodied people, right? Right. So like a charity for people in wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Right. With no people in wheelchairs involved.
Yeah.
Right. Like, imagine those kind of charities. That sounds stupid, doesn't it? But
so I think you're giving some good advice to go to certain charities, and, as you say, give. We're not saying don't give to charities, we're saying give to charities, but know who you're giving to and what you're giving for.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Do your research. So, most basic way I can say it is donate to autistic-led charities, nothing about us without us.
Yeah.
And do your research. Do your research. right? Research, I mean, I'm not sure if the camera will be able to see this, but that's my research for today, right? And so do your research on stuff, because like if you don't research stuff, you're not going to understand what you're giving to.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure when Mark Rober started this fundraiser, he did it with the pure intention that he wanted to help.
Yeah.
You know, his son. But I saw an amazing comment underneath that video by an autistic person, from an autistic person.
Yeah.
That said, right? Imagine how his son will feel when he finds out his dad supported a charity that is trying to kill him.
Yeah. And I think this is the thing, is what we've all got to be wary of when we do certain things and give to charities and we don't really understand that sometimes these sort of things can come back, you know, and bite us in the butt, really. Yeah. So, you know, just be aware. So anyway, Lacy, I'm going to wind it up now, and I'm going to say thank you for your really amazing insight into it. You know what to do. You can follow us on, I think, are we going to put this on both sites, or what we need to do?
I think we'll advertise it on Murder Analyze as well.
Yeah. So we're going to advertise the Murder Analyze, and we're going to put it on the phone.
Actually, maybe we can put it on Murder Analyze as well, because we can just say it's a bit off topic, but
yeah.
If we
we're going to put it on both channels. So give us a thumbs up.
Right.
You know what to do.
Because
you can do the outro, can't you now? Your turn.
Our links to Facebook, Instagram, everything will be in the description.
And this will also be on Spotify podcast, because I think it's a really good podcast to go on.
Yeah. But we'll have to remaster the audio for that.
Yeah.
And cut it up a bit, but all our social links, I will put them in the description if I remember, because I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but she writes most of the descriptions. I go in and I fix them up and I add all the links, right?
Thank gosh.
Right. But my job here is simply I sort out the uploading stuff. She does all the research for the cases. She writes and records all of them, edits everything, and then she uploads them, and then I go and fix them up, and I publish them. Yeah. Right. So all our links will be in the description. You can subscribe if you want. We have Facebook, Instagram. What else do we have? Spotify. I did sort out the subreddit.
Just sort out quite a lot.
Yeah. And everything. So just do it.
So, are you going to say until the next time, or should I?
You do it. They're used to you.
So thanks for watching, and until the next time. Bye bye.